Sorry, forgot about starting to record. And I am a brain health coach and a functional medicine doctor. And the this series of webinars, there are 8 of them. And in case you missed any of the previous ones, don't worry, you'll receive a recording with the recording of this one. So you'll receive all the previous 3. And every month, third Friday of the month, I have these webinars. And today is webinar 4. And the fourth key is moving more and sitting less. Now, I don't know about you all. All of us, I think, spend a whole lot more time sitting nowadays at work, whether watching television, sitting in cars, commuting. So what I wanted to do today is, yes, of course, I mean, I will talk about what are the problems from continuous sitting, but rather than focus on the problem alone, I want to discuss some strategies that I personally use many of them, and I would love you all to share your strategies with me. And more importantly, I am a certified tiny habits coach. So today I am going to do free. I'm going to do live coaching on tiny habits recipes, and I'll of course briefly explain what the tiny habits method is and what is a tiny habits recipe. No, I am not going to cook. You don't want me to cook. I'm a hopeless cook. So this is a habit recipe, not a food recipe. And that's how we so I will go with the that is how I'm planning to do today. And I think this is the first time I'm doing a live coaching on my, Friday webinars. I've done Tiny Habits coaching sessions earlier, other sessions, but not on my monthly webinars. So I will, of course, as always, start with a PowerPoint slide. Um, sorry about that. Okay. So just a recap, and for those of you who are new, these are the 8 keys I talk about. This is the framework I work on. The first 3 were mindset, restful sleep, and right food. Today is moving more and sitting less. Next month is going to be building stress resilience. And of course, 6, 7, and 8. I think we finish in August, if I'm right. So, what is the problem with continuous sitting? The thing is, there's nothing good about continuous sitting. This was type 2 diabetes sits on a chair. This was the title of a paper a few years ago. So what has happened in the last several years? Scientists have found when they started studying people who sit continuously, and obviously you want to know what is the safe amount of sitting. I'll come to that. So sitting continuously for several hours a day actually, unfortunately, even negates the exercise you've done in the morning. So let us say you are someone who goes to the gym first thing in the morning, and you spend about an hour in the gym or half an hour at the gym working out. And then you come back and have a shower and your breakfast and you're off to the office. Or if you're like me, you're working from home. Uh, Studies have found that, and then you sit continuously for 4, 5, 6 hours. So studies have found that for such people who have exercised in the morning, or they usually exercise at some other time in the day, but if they sit continuously, it kind of negates all the benefits of that exercise. And this effect is regardless of body fat percentage. What do I mean by that? We know that, having a higher than expected body fat percentage is not good, not healthy for anyone. But at the same time, you may probably have a lot of, lean friends who'll say, "Oh, it doesn't apply to me, and I'm very healthy. I go to the gym in the morning. I don't have excess body fat." No, it's not true. So it also affects those people who are not they are not living with a higher than optimal level of body fat, and they think that they are. And again, the other thing is, from outside someone can look, healthy. They don't look overweight, they don't look unwell, but chronic disease has a way of hiding, which sometimes it doesn't, the symptoms don't show up. So as you can see, there's a whole lot of conditions which are which are affected by prolonged sitting: reduced muscle mass, poor mood, increased chronic inflammation. And as all of you have heard me talk about this before. And if you haven't heard me talk about this, the three foundations of brain health are optimal blood glucose levels, optimal blood pressure levels, and low levels of chronic inflammation. So, prolonged sitting affects, adversely impacts all those three areas. And so I want to focus more on, what are the solutions? How can you interrupt continuous sitting? And more importantly, do you know what your risk is? That is most important. So again, these are the different strategies that I'm going to talk about. Exercise micro breaks. So this is a very good study. Dr. Martin Jibala is actually, many of you probably know him as the 1 minute exercise man. So he's a kinesiologist from Canada, and he found, and this is scientific studies. It's not just someone decided to make up something. He found that if people did, these short exercise but intense, vigorous exercise breaks, and these are very short duration. So when we talk about, everyone knows we need to exercise more, but why is it that most, and that includes me, by the way, why is it that most of us are not able to meet, whatever, whether you call it 75 minutes of moderate intensity exercise, 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise every week? Why is it that most people are not able to, meet those criteria? So one of the things people say is they don't have time, which is actually true for a lot of people, because if for you exercise means going to the gym and working out in the gym, then of course time is a factor, because you'll have to get into your car, go to a gym, unless you have a gym at home. That is what I'd love to have. And yes, time is a factor, but these exercise micro breaks. So what Dr. Jivala and his group found that uh, people taking these small micro breaks can also improve their health in all these, gazillion ways. And that is really exciting for, and the other important thing is, many people love exercising. They get the exercise high, and they can, for them, not being physically active is not an option. But there are a lot of people like me who, yes, I feel good about it, but it's not like I'm like one of those who are absolutely thinked on exercise, and I will exercise, or I haven't exercised most of my life. So I am not one of those people. And I know a lot of my patients are like that. Of course, a lot of my patients are into physical activity as well. So those who are physically active, otherwise, even for them, this continuous sitting is a problem, and that applies to, and of course, those who are mostly sedentary, definitely applies. So these are the different strategies I'm going to talk about, in the sense that how can you interrupt your continuous sitting? Now, what I want you to think, because at the end of this, one is you're going to do your personal risk assessment. It's an online tool. And after doing that, what I would like you to do is look at these strategies and think of which are the ones you see yourself doing. So that is my tiny habits thinking in place. So tiny habits is a method of behavior change which came from the work of Dr. BJ Fogg at the behavior design. He's the head of the behavior design lab at Stanford. And so the tiny habits method is, it is a method of behavior change that does not rely on motivation and willpower. And after I discuss these strategies, so in the tiny habits world, we don't say, I'm sure you've read numerous, articles on the internet and anywhere, you should take the stairs and not the elevator. And I always say, depends on which, let's say your office is on the 21st floor. So obviously you're not going to take 21 floors of, the stairs. And more importantly, how practical is it for you? Let us say you have a meeting and you reached late because, there was traffic on the way. Are you going to take the stairs at that time and reach your office all panting, and your first appointment is already waiting there? So here is where, so standing desk, for example. Now, standing desk or a treadmill desk, yes, these would be ideal, but they need a little bit more of, more of, what shall I say, more of commitment and changing things in your environment. So in the tiny habits world, we say, that what do you see yourself doing, and more importantly, whatever strategy you want to implement, does it have an impact on the outcome you're looking for? So the outcome you're looking for is interrupting your continuous sitting, but then, will getting a treadmill desk, is that a practical option for you? I would love to have a treadmill desk. I don't have space to put in a, one of these treadmills. And there are some available which are quite flat, and these actually move at a much lower speed, about 2 to 3 kilometers an hour, I think, and not the regular treadmill. But people who have used them, I have not used one of these. People who have used them, they say that you need a little bit of getting used to if you are, typing at the same time as you're walking. And again, our brains are fantastic. We have plastic brains, which means our brains can learn a lot of new stuff. So once I think you get into the habit of this, you can do it. Now I use a standing desk, you can see. So mine is a sit stand desk. I can press a switch and it can go up and down. But if, and of course, this is not, I had to buy the sit stand desk. Now, if this is not something that you can, just decide to go and buy a new desk tomorrow, there are other options. So one of the things is, and even if you have a sit stand desk, if you're typing, obviously you need the laptop at a different level and you need your keyboard at a different level. All tables don't come with the different levels. Here you can see that she is using a stand which has these at different levels. So I found another easier way. What I decided to do is, I don't know whether you can see, this is just an ordinary box. I think I bought it from the dollar store, I'm not sure. So just prop the laptop on on this box or anything else, or if you have a whole bunch of large books. And then, I got a keyboard from this also I bought from Amazon. And though I use a Mac, this is not a Mac keyboard, so it doesn't cost a lot. My point is, I want to share strategies that you can implement right away and not have to go through, a big budgeting this and budgeting that. So what are the things you can start tomorrow? So propping your laptop on a box or a books or something like that, and having an extra, or maybe you spend a lot of time like me on Zoom calls. Zoom calls, you don't always need your keyboard, then you can do it just with propping your laptop up or getting a stand. And you do get a whole lot of these stands available nowadays. So again, I'm going to share strategies, like I said. So think about which are the ones you see yourself doing. And then these are like, for example, doing 2 dumbbell curls after, and I will explain what I mean in the tiny habits method using these. So these are, some of you travel a lot, maybe for work or whatever reasons. These resistance bands, they don't occupy much space at all. You can just put them in your bag and they work quite well. So just having access to these things, and more importantly, none of this stuff costs much. So when you're traveling, carrying dumbbells is of course not an option, and wherever you go, you may not have access to a gym. So instead of doing weight training, maybe you're just going to use a resistance band for those few days, do a few, resistance band stretches. The other thing, this stability ball, it's very nice to sit on it actually. I'm sure many of you have used this. So I use this sometimes to sit when I'm watching TV. And yes, I do watch TV in the evenings. But also sometimes I use this to sit on when I'm, watching something on my laptop instead of I'm actually having to type. But I'm sure you can actually type also at the same time. Now, some people use a sort of a stand for the stability ball, so it becomes like a chair. And I have not used that stand, because this is, so what happens is, if you use that, then the ball is anyway stable. But if you don't use that, you are working your core each time because you have to stabilize yourself. So different ways of doing it. You could use both, you could use neither, because this does occupy some space. So I realized yesterday that, oh, I'm going to talk about this. I better get my stability ball upstairs. This was in the basement. I said, okay, I should start using it again. And this is a stationary bike. I got one last year because I realized it was winter and it was very cold. I knew I wasn't going to go outside to walk at, -30 and we had, I think, about -45 with wind chill. I knew I wasn't going to walk in that weather. And so I decided, okay, this is something I can use. throughout the year. And there are some which are like folding, they occupy less space. But one thing I would suggest, and you don't need a fancy one with a I don't think that that screen comes with it, but you can prop your screen there. But another thing I would suggest is first check out, because the one I use has a backrest. Because if you are using the stationary bike to sort of, sit on it and read or something like that, then you like that backrest. But at the same time, I must also say these seats are not very comfortable to sit for very long. I think the maximum I can do is probably 45 minutes to an hour max. It starts hurting. But then again, different ways, it maybe it's not practical at all for you to have a stationary bike in your workplace. Or so find out, maybe you can have it at home. Or even more important, why I'm sharing all this is maybe you already have a stationary bike in the garage and just want to dust it out and get it and start using it. Sometimes all we need is someone telling us, okay, you already have it, so why not start using it. Then this is one of my favorites, as well as one a lot of my patients love it. So walking when you are on a phone call. Now I know many of you have lots of phone calls as a part of your work. First of all, you will need to get either earphones, the wireless ones or the wired ones as well. You don't want to break your brain with the phone next to your ear, and it's painful also depending on the length of your phone call. So this is one of the favorites. Many of my patients are very excited about this because it's so easy to do, and this is one of the tiny habit recipes that I'll probably talk about today. Then walking meetings. Now here I'm in Alberta in Canada, and spring is just sort of coming in, not yet arrived, and we have lots of walking places. So walking meetings is a wonderful opportunity here. And maybe you can have your business meetings. We used to have our team meetings, as walking meetings. This is probably a mall in India. Many places in India, it's very hot, not just India, many other Asian countries as well. It's very hot. You may not be in a position to go out for a walking meeting at midday, but there are lots and lots of malls in Mumbai, which is my other home. There are malls which they decided they're going to keep the malls open for morning walkers, and the malls usually open around maybe 11 a.m. or something. Before that, because of this huge place that is available, they kept it open for people to walk. So I thought that was a really wonderful gesture. So the different ways, the problem with modern walking is you have to stop looking around at all the numerous sales and you feel like buying something. So yeah, that risk is there. But then this is again another way of many different ways to, reduce continuous sitting. Sometimes when I meet my friends, we usually decide that, okay, first we'll walk and we can talk while we are walking. After that, at the end of it, we'll go and have a meal. Though ideally, it would be better if we walked after the meal. But sometimes, depending on the weather, a whole bunch of stuff, how much time I have, both of us have. Yes, if it is possible, we'll walk after the meal again, but we don't want to miss out on the walk. So this is again something that you can try. uh, get some really upbeat music. Those of you who love Bollywood music, or any, just go to YouTube and just search for upbeat exercise music. You'll find whatever you love. But then you can use earphones so that you don't disturb anyone else in the house if you're dancing early in the morning, and nobody has to see you dance. And just feel free to do whatever you want to do. And maybe you love dancing when you were much younger. You learned dancing and you did dance then, but now you don't have the time, or it's kind of just fell away by the wayside. Who says exercise only has to be hard work at the gym? It can be so many different things. So this is something, again, another option. In fact, I remember I was talking to a patient, and she said, I have no time to exercise, I don't feel like exercising. I said, okay, do you think you could dance? She said, oh, is that like, does that count as exercise? I said, yeah, absolutely. And a nice, vigorous dance is like a great way to work out. Then there may be people who have, challenges, physical challenges with exercising. Usually we think that exercising needs a lot of, physical activity, which I may not, I may have a lot of pain, disabilities. Chair exercises. Again, YouTube is a fantastic, place to find stuff for every person, every kind of, ability, disability. There are a lot of people, a lot of YouTube videos which are for people who are older and who have disabilities. So chair exercises, chair yoga, even for conditions like multiple sclerosis, there is a lot of data showing that these kind of simple exercises, which people think this is like not a big deal. What is there? Just sitting and doing a few things, but they do matter and they do have a huge impact. And you can see this lady has these ankle weights. So this can also add more resistance to whatever workout you're doing, or if you're walking. Now, I got a pair of ankle weights and I realized they were too heavy because my knees started hurting. So find out what works for you, and you can always, take out the weights and figure out ways. Of course, this is, I realize I can't use these during winter because my they won't fit inside my winter boots. But there are different options for you to try out. Some people use, small dumbbells in their hands when they're walking. I have a neighbor who does that. It's like nice to see them use all these different ways. So this is the website, and I'm going to share it in the chat box. 1 minute. First, let me stop sharing the screen. And so what will happen is I'm going to share this in the chat box so that you can open it in your device if you'd like to and calculate your personal sitting score. So can all of you see it in the chat box? This is the link. Just go to that link and I will share what it looks like. And in case you don't want to do it now, that's fine as well. You can do it later. So this is what you're going to see when you click on that link. Just ignore the calories part of it. As you probably know, if you've heard me speak before, I don't like counting calories because mostly because it's not absolutely accurate. So this is the calculator, and here you have to put in your data. So commute to work. I'm going to stop there and give you some time. I should time myself. It is 9:23 by my clock. So I think 2 minutes. So 9:26 by my clock. I know different, all of you are maybe different time zones. So just go through this, and after that, if you feel that the time is insufficient, I'll add some more time. Don't worry. We are going to come back and discuss what, um, most importantly, what did you find out? Was any of that surprising? And then, of course, more importantly, what does that information mean for you, and what are the strategies that I'm going to talk about? So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And if any of you have any challenge with that, let me know. So if you can't open that link, I don't think that should be a problem because I actually posted the link and not just the name of the website. Again, this is based on, I think 2012, they did this research on sitting continuously. Do you have a lot of sitting because you spend time with clients? Now, that is what some of my patients tell me, that I have client meetings. So I cannot expect my clients to stand when I'm there at the meeting with them. So then you have to figure out ways of other ways to interrupt your continuous sitting when you're not meeting clients. And if meeting clients is all you do throughout the day, then you obviously need to break up your day accordingly. So do any of you need more time to figure out your sitting risk, or is everyone good? Okay, I don't see any raised hands or any messages, so I'm going to go back to share the screen. So those of you who didn't have the time to go do the scoring right now, you can do it later, but Sorry, not from this. Yeah. So here are the different risks. So the lowest risk is actually less than 3 hours. And that is what Canada's 24-hour movement guidelines recommends as well. Less than 3 hours of continuous sitting. So low risk is less than 4 hours in this particular calculator, medium, as you can see, high and very high. So how many of you were, Tanya, I know you were surprised. Anyone else wants to share whether, and you can raise your hands and I can unmute you, or if you feel like you can type in the Q&A box or the chat box. I think I have enabled it for everyone today. Would any of you like to share? Was it a surprise? Was it a shock? Many of my patients get a big shock. So Tanya, you're not alone. Okay. I don't see any raised hands or um, any questions. So, oh, this is basically just a summary of everything that I'm talking about. Move more, sit less, stand some, and break into a sweat every day. So I am going to start a poll now. And remember, what you have to do is which are the ones you see yourself doing. See, all the strategies that I've mentioned here are, they have high impact in interrupting continuous sitting. But like I said, as a tiny habits coach, I will ask you to decide on which are the ones you see yourself doing. And then the next phase of today's webinar, I will actually explain what the tiny habits method is and how you can start with the tiny habits recipe. Okay, so this, can all of you see the poll? Okay. Exercise micro breaks. So I'm happy to see so many of you want to do that. Yeah. Wall push has got a lot of okay. Maybe I'm going to leave it on for another 30 seconds. It's like less than a minute, less than 2 minutes now. This is wonderful. Everyone wants to do exercise micro breaks. So that is what I'm going to start talking about. Okay, so 2 minutes are up and I'm going to end the poll. Share the results. Can you all see the results? So exercise micro breaks. What does it mean, exercise micro breaks? Some people call it exercise snacking, and you can see. So I'm going to start with exercise micro breaks, and then I'll talk about the tiny habits method and create a few recipes. And if any of you need any troubleshooting with your recipes, we'll do that. Chair exercise. I'm so happy to see so many of you excited about chair exercise and walking during phone calls. So I'm going to stop sharing. uh, So, what are exercise micro breaks? So, exercise micro breaks, as the name implies, is you do a short, intense exercise, or even if it's not intense, some short break after your, continuous sitting. Now, if you listen to other people or you watch stuff on the internet, you'll find that people talk about set an alarm on your phone or on your laptop or something. Now, the fact is, if alarms work for you, well and good, but in the tiny habits world, we know that alarms don't always work well. And I have tried that as well. So what I found is I might suddenly get an alarm in the middle of a Zoom call, that I don't sit usually, but I might get an alarm in the middle of some highly focused work, and then that alarm is very irritating. I don't want to suddenly interrupt my reading or some presentation that I'm preparing for, and suddenly stand up and walk or something like that. That completely disrupts my flow. So I don't like that. If alarms and dings and bells are helping you, go ahead and do them. But in the tiny habits community, so what is the tiny habits method? So the tiny habits method is, like I said, it is a method that of behavior change, habit change, which does not rely on extreme motivation and willpower. But what it does rely on is your positive emotions. So how does a tiny habit recipe go? It's divided into what we say A, B, and C. A is an anchor moment. B is a new behavior that you want to bring in. And C is celebration. So, anchor moments are things you already do in your schedule. And if you go through your day, and you can see the Tiny Habits book at on my shelf. If you go through the book, you will find it has a list of a whole lot of anchor moments. So, what is an anchor moment? For example, if you want to take an exercise micro break, I will take that as an example. An anchor moment would be after I finish my first, again, I'm giving an example of Zoom calls because that is what I have a lot of. For you, it may be something else. After my first call is over, and I do hope in your on your calendar you have cushions of time in between your calls, and you're not like scheduled back to back. That is absolutely one of the things that increases the stress levels for a lot of people. And the solution to that is fairly simple. Make sure you have 10 to 15 minutes breaks between your meetings. So after my first Zoom call is over, or first morning meeting is over, I will do two wall pushes. So two wall pushes, you know how to do it. And if you don't know what a wall push is, just go to YouTube and find out. There are many different ways of doing it, whether you're closer to the wall or further away from the wall would decide the intensity. Two wall pushes, that is the behavior. And the next, the C, the celebration part is instant celebration. So celebration doesn't mean that, after doing two wall pushes, you go to the open your fridge and have a pot of ice cream. It's something that is meaningful to you. Now, in the book, there is a list of more than 100, and there are things like whatever is relevant to you. Some people who are, who love dancing or singing, it's like, okay, after my first morning Zoom call is over, I will do two wall pushes and then go woohoo, or tell myself in good job, Shabnam, or something like that, or thumbs up or fist pump, or depending on what is relevant to you. For me, it's like I imagine fireworks going off, just like how my Fitbit tells me when I've achieved a certain number of daily steps. Depends on, it's a personality thing. Many of us don't like to go woohoo. I'm not that kind of a person, but if that is important to you, if that is how you like to celebrate, find something that is meaningful to you. Now, I know many people resist the celebration. I was a celebration resistor too, until I realized that this is based on Dr. Fogg's research. It's not something he just decided to put in there. So what happens with two wall pushes? Obviously, you're not going to achieve all your exercise goals. But what it does is the days you are highly motivated, you might just go and do an entire, you go to the gym and finish everything. But what about those days when you don't have the motivation or you don't have the time? So a tiny habit recipe, if you do the way I'm telling you, can keep that habit wired in. And what happens to a lot of people? You get busy, you have no time to go to the gym, so exercise falls by the wayside. But here, using the tiny habits method, you still retain that habit, and this instant celebration gives you a sort of a positive reinforcement. And then this is the very interesting part, which a lot of people don't get, is they think it works because it's tiny. No, tiny will not always help us achieve everything we want to, but this instant celebration gives us a positive reinforcement, which increases our motivation to do bigger things. And again, if you have not experienced the tiny habits method, it's difficult to explain it because you have to experience it. There is no other shortcut to it. And I have personally experienced it, and so have a lot of other people who have gone through any of our programs. And so that is my point is, rather than thinking that does it work, it'll not work for me, what are just two wall pushes after my first morning meeting, what is that going to do for me? Instead of doing that, just apply it and see what happens. And so here I'm going to pause. Anyone else wants to incorporate any other habit other than, so this was an exercise micro break. Any other habit you want to incorporate that I can help you create a recipe with? So some of the things that I talked about, like getting a standing desk or sit stand desk, those are sort of one-time actions because you're changing your environment. You are changing. So from that, you can create a habit of, like I got rid of the chair in my office because I didn't want the temptation of sitting down. Some of the things that other people have done is they keep the table, at the higher level, at the standing level, when they shut their office in the evening, so that next morning the default mode is standing. So anyone else would like to, if you have any questions or you want me to help you with any recipe to create, please feel free to raise your hands. I can unmute you, or you can type in the Q&A box as well. Would any of you like to share whether if you've created a recipe right now, what is your takeaway from this session, and what are you going to do maybe today or tomorrow? Would any of you like to share that? Okay, I don't see any hands yet. Oh yeah, there is a question. Um, okay, so Tanya, would you like, I could, chat is disabled? I'm sorry about that. You can type in the Q&A box in case the chat is not working, because I think I have to go to the settings to change that. So Tanya, would you like me to unmute you? Would you like to share it with us? So Tanya says, I will break up my exercise throughout the day instead of all at once. And Benisa says chat is disabled. So Benisa, I can unmute you. Just I'm going to unmute Tanya now. Mm. Okay, I will stop the